Greetings, people of YouTube. I've been doing a lot of interesting research lately, and I've discovered some very interesting things about the internet and the world in which we live. And because of all this really cool stuff that I'm starting to discover, there's also been a lot of people trying to discover about me. So I figure I might as well make it really easy for everybody and just kind of explain what all these things are that I discovered, and in a way that's really easy to understand. Because a lot of the research that I did on YouTube, it wasn't exactly easy for me to understand. There's this interesting thing that's happening in the age of the internet where people can go and look up just about anything they want. Like, you can open up a million tabs and research like a billion things. And one of the really interesting things about this is that there's a lot of information that it doesn't help you. It kind of throws you off. It derails your research, because at some point it becomes extremely difficult to differentiate real concrete data and facts from something that's basically been planted there to sort of take your mind off of what's actually going on. So I just wanted to point that out, and there's really no way for anybody to absolutely know which one is, real data and which one is sort of bullshit. And it's also true that sometimes you can have real good solid data and like real events in a video, and at the same time it'll be cluttered with misinformation and misdirection and all of that other stuff that we don't want in our research and whatnot. So I wanted to start by saying that this is not a conspiracy theory. I've done a ton of research, like countless hours of research through videos and reading texts, and people try and say that I'm crazy, and it's really up to you to decide whether or not I am. It's not up to me to decide whether or not I am, but hopefully you watch something from this and you learn something, because it took me a long time to figure out, what information I was seeing was bullshit and what was true. So before I talk anymore, I'm going to start this video, and I want you guys to sort of get an idea of where I'm going with this. So this is about, it'll kind of explain itself, but I'm just going to play the video, and so that you guys can watch just the first few minutes of this. So I'm gonna pause it right here. This Tony guy, okay? Um, this is the face of the New World Order right here, okay? And why am I saying this? Well, because it's not as complicated as people make it out to be. It's actually extremely simple. I'm gonna play the video, and I'm gonna turn it down just a little bit, and I'm gonna keep talking. There's a lot of different organizations that have come up,
owner of Mosaic
and
Security,
he'll explain.
a private military company that provides elite forces level security for their clients. Tony has a VIP coming into Caracas tomorrow who will need to guard. We tagged along as he scouted out a particularly dangerous neighborhood that we'll need to pass through in the morning. It's called the Triple X Barrier.
The main issue.
So you guys can watch this video on your own. It's on YouTube, you can find it, and I'm just gonna mute it so that I can talk. But basically what's happening is there's these private companies, because it used to be that the government controlled the world. It used to be that the monarchs and their minions would basically control every aspect of human life, everything down from what tea it was okay for you to drink, all the way to what sort of car it's okay for you to drive, how you should treat your wife, and all that other fun stuff that we let the government tell us what to do. So the government, right, gets its power from the people. The government's power comes directly from the people. Okay, the government doesn't always start off really powerful. Obviously, there's like a royal family or some family with a bunch of money, like in Saudi Arabia, a bunch of dudes get rich finding oil, and now they're like the kings of the country, right? So it's sort of been that way throughout history of the world, right? So like a family that had lots and lots of money or that had a really successful business now gets to say, we're royal and you're not. So we're cooler than you and we have more money than you. So what we're going to do is we're going to start an organization like a government, and now we're going to tell you what to do. And because we're smart and we're powerful, we're going to write the laws of the nation, and everyone is going to pay us. Every time you go to the store to buy eggs, you're going to give us a quarter or a quarter of a penny. It doesn't matter at this point how much. But throughout time, this has always sort of been the case with these sorts of societies. It's obviously been different in different societies that didn't depend on these sorts of systems. But let me explain something very interesting that's happening now. These governments are losing their power. And this whole new world order, it's in a way, it's a way of sort of disguising what's going on in the world. So I'm going to try and explain it in a very simple to understand way. Basically what's happening is the private military institutions are at this point becoming more powerful than the governments that used to employ them. So I'm going to repeat that in case people didn't catch it. The government used to control every aspect of human life. Not because they're like gods or anything. No, it's just because they were clever. They could write laws, and they could take money from every individual going to the supermarket or getting a paycheck, and they could use that money to hire like a goon squad of soldiers. And these soldiers could tell you how to live your life. They could tell you what street it was okay to walk on, and they could tell you what street wasn't okay for you to walk on. So this gave the government power, and this power stemmed from the money that they were receiving from the people. Now what's going on now is there's a whole new player, and it used to be that the government had its own military, and that's what really gave them like power. Like they could come and knock down your door and shoot you. You know what I mean? They have power. They don't just have money, but they can bomb the crap out of somebody or blow them up with a cannon. So this gives them power. So now what's happening is actually very interesting. What's going on now is these private companies, which you're seeing right now, is these are the private companies, and they're all over the world. They're training people to be elite killers. This is the new, basically, like the military has morphed into a different beast in a way. Like the government still has its own military. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the government doesn't have a military anymore. But when a soldier is extremely competent and knows what they're doing and they're very good at it, they don't want to work for 3 years. And if you watch this video, it'll talk about this in some detail. They don't want to work for the government for 3 or 4 years and get like a little bit of money, like $100,000 or something. No one wants to do that. Who wants to risk their life, defending their country, quote unquote, and killing a bunch of people and being traumatized for the rest of their life? Maybe if they have a soul or something, who knows? But no one who's skilled at that wants to get paid a little bit of money. So what ends up happening is all the guys that are really, really, really good join one of these private militaries. Okay, so you have a wide variety of private militaries. There's private militaries that bomb people. There's private militaries that are security guards for people. There's private militaries that will go in and like send a group of like undercover dudes to destabilize the infrastructure of a country that your government is at war with. And these guys get paid a lot of money. And this money comes from taxpayer dollars. So what used to give the government power by collecting your money and hiring, these dudes with guns to kill people and get more power and more resources, because that's what they did. They'd go into other countries and they'd go through with guns. And they'd say, hey, you have a gold mine over there? Oh, cool. We want it. Or, we're not going to take all of it because then we'll look like douchebags, but we're going to tax it now. So you can keep mining gold there as long as you pay us like a 5% tax. And so, you know what I mean? And eventually, slowly but surely, they start to rotate their own guys in, and they start to make new laws, and they start to make more harsh laws and more strict laws. And eventually, over a long period of time, they're able to control all of those resources. So that's what gave the government power. But what's happening now is very, very interesting. These private institutions are now taking this power away from the government. Why? Well, because the private institutions are basically the like the strength. It's like the right arm of the government, or like the machine gun of the government, or like the really clever person who's thinking tactical warfare, or destabilization of other countries through infrastructure manipulation and attacks, or the production of like computer code even can be considered in situations like this military tactical weaponry, because if you can make a virus that will take over every computer in the entire world, and you're part of a defense company, a quote unquote defense company, well, now your company essentially controls every computer in the world. And that gives that company an incredible amount of power, because it's, in a way, the power is shifting. It's shifting from the governments who used to have it because they could tax you and take the power away from you and hire dudes with guns to beat you up if you had anything bad to say about them. And now that power is slowly but surely shifting to these private military institutions who are taking this money that's being collected from you by the government, and they're being paid to do all sorts of things that they can do exempt from law. And they don't, like, there's no law that says private military institutions are exempt from law. But look at a country like Iraq that, was bombed to nothing. They don't have anything left. We bombed everything that they had. And this video will talk about how in the beginning of the Iraq War, a lot of the people were private military institutions that were involved in this. And what's really interesting is, in a way, the private military institutions started to get greedy. Rather than waiting for the government to call them and say, hey, we have a real conflict, we need to pay you guys to go over here and blow up a bunch of people, or to hack into this thing and take it over for us, or to build these drones so that we can survey the area, rather than the private military institutions waiting patiently for these sorts of things to happen naturally, what they have started to do is they've started to manipulate the geopolitical situation of the world in order to benefit their own intentions, which is usually money. And it's not in the sense that you would think usually. It's not just like they want the government to pay them so that they could go blow stuff up. They're a lot more clever than that. What used to be the government would pay these institutions to go and take over, let's say, a gold mine or an oil mine, or a government that was trying to fight back or something like that. Now these private institutions, slowly but surely, they're saying, hey, we're doing the government's dirty work, and they're giving us chump change, basically. We don't want to get paid $3 million for this job, even though, you and I would probably go, hey, yeah, that's okay, that's cool, yeah, we'll take $3 million. But no, they've been at the game for a lot longer than we have. So what they think to themselves at that point is, I don't want to do this for $3 million. If I'm going to go, help them take this oil mine that's worth, $4 billion, or a gold mine that's worth $100 billion, I want to get paid more than $3 million. It might be that I got like 100 guys with me that we're all going and we're all getting $3 million, but that's not enough. I want more. I want the gold mine. And it doesn't take a genius to figure out that at some point in time this is going to happen. And it also doesn't take a genius to figure out that when you have companies like this that operate basically exempt from the law, well, what does that mean? Well, if we blow the shit up, like, out of a country, they don't have a police force anymore. They don't have an army anymore. Their people can have their morals, like, crushed. They don't want to fight. Especially not against a highly trained, extremely deadly, militarized private organization that's extremely, extremely potent. They don't want to fight that. Even if they did want to, and there's been cases where they have fought back, they can't. There is absolutely nothing that they can do against these organizations. These organizations have hundreds, if not thousands, of extremely clever, extremely deadly people who, at this point in time, in my opinion, have started to challenge the governments for power. So rather than working for the government and taking the money from the government in exchange for what they do, they've basically, in a way, started to manipulate the government and manipulate the people of those governments in order to profit from their agendas. So this whole Iraq war stuff is like, I didn't vote to have a war, but I can guarantee you that the private military institutions, they voted to have a war. Our government might not even have voted to have a war, but because they have so much money at this point and they have so much power with their weapons and their clever tactics and their drones and all this other good stuff, well, now they can influence, like what's happening here, they can influence the government, and they can start to sort of pull the strings in order to get what they want, in order to go into these countries that have weak militaries, that have, you know what I mean, weak police forces, that are already corrupt from the inside out, countries that no one is going to think twice about after we go and blow them up. And they do this for their own personal gain, but they're not doing it for a couple $1 million anymore. They're doing it to take over the entire country. They're trying to rival the governments in power. So what used to be that the governments had power and the governments could control the direction of the world and, you know, what you were allowed to do and what you weren't allowed to do, now this is being challenged by the private military institutions around the world. They're saying, hey, you know, we're not okay with you guys telling us what to do anymore. We're stronger than you. We have more guns than you. We can operate in any country that we want. We're not bound to your, you know, jurisdictions, so to say. We're not bound to your dictators or rulers. We can do whatever we want, wherever we want, whenever we want, and with unlimited resources. So they're slowly but surely taking all of this power away from the government. And they're doing it with our money. They're doing it with the money that we're creating. They're doing it by taking over countries that people like you and I live in, that work there. And they're doing it at an alarming rate. And I think the government has realized this, and I think the government at this point is helpless. I think it's trying to ally with them to try and sort of come to some sort of middle ground with them and be friends rather than enemies. But I don't think the private military institution has any real reason to stay allied with the government, especially when they have so much more power at this point than the government does. I don't think that their relationship is what they want it to be, and this problem is growing out of control. And if anyone out there is willing to prove me wrong, if you have data that says, hey, you're wrong, this is not what the Illuminati is, or this is not what the New World Order is, or you're wrong about this whole shift in power, I'd be happy to look at whatever data that you can produce. And like I said, I'm not showing you like concrete facts. I just showed you a video, and I showed you a video accompanied by my own personal logic after having researched so long and so many different pages. And if I tried to pull up all the pages that I've read and all the people that I've talked to, because this isn't just, what I'm telling you guys isn't just coming from the internet. I've talked to people that have been a part of the governments, that have been a part of the private military organizations. I've talked to lots of them, and I can tell you right now from my own personal experience, this is what's going on right now. This is happening right now. This whole Illuminati thing isn't about aliens, it's not about zombies, it's not about people that suck the blood out of children and reptilians and all this other bullshit. This is what's happening around us every single day. The news, the words, they lie, but the pictures, they tell the truth. So when you watch the news, turn down the volume, put it on mute, just look at the pictures, and you'll see exactly what's going on all over the world. And this isn't something that anyone's trying to hide. It's nothing that someone can try to hide. You can't hide this. This is facts. This is concrete data that I'm not even showing you guys. It's on YouTube. It's on the internet. You can go look outside. You'll see it happening outside. But I'm trying to explain it in a way that's very simple to understand. I'm not throwing any complicated terminology in here to confuse anybody. I'm giving my own personal logic of how this whole play is going to play out. And I think it's going to be bad for everybody except for the private military institutions. And I think the government has already realized this. And I don't think that there's anything that they can do about it. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'm going to post some more videos. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Or learn something, which would probably be more useful. So good luck on your, I don't know what you guys are going to do after this. Maybe play some video games, or maybe go read a book. But that's what's going on, guys. This is happening right now.